This video was brought to you by my loyal patrons. Pledge today and receive exclusive perks. Link in the description.
Dear Christopher, here is your friend Thomas the Tank Engine. He wanted to come out of his station yard and see the world. These stories tell you how he did it.
Alrighty everyone, you all have been so patient, and we're finally here. Season 16, a season of many, many lasts. The last hit entertainment season, and the last hill to cross before Thomas and Friends' big renaissance. Is Season 16 as bad as the last few seasons before it, or is it an overlooked gem? Well, let's revisit it, and see what it has to offer. In 2011, Hit Entertainment's owners, Apex Partners, put Hit up for sale. Many companies were interested, and several made bids, but the winner was Mattel, a company that they had previously partnered with to produce toys. Mattel bought Hit Entertainment for a grand total of $680 million in 2011, and the sale went through in 2012. Man, we're coming up on 15 years since Mattel has owned this property. Where does the time go? Many big changes occurred on the production side of the series, all of which would come to be seen next year, making Season 16 the final season produced under the old Hit Entertainment team. This was a year of many lasts. The last to be written by the old writing team with Sharon Miller as head writer, the last season to feature longtime narrators Michael Angelis and Michael Brandon, and the last season to be animated by Nitrogen Studios. Nitrogen's contract was up, and they decided to step away from Thomas to work on another major film production. That being Sausage Party. Man, what a leap. The studio would find itself in some controversy following the release of that movie, where several animators came forward and stated that they were forced to work overtime for free to meet deadlines, and some were threatened with termination if they didn't oblige. Not a good legacy left by this studio. They were purchased by Cinesite Group in 2017, and Nitrogen Studios is no more. There were some shakeups behind the scenes with the production staff. Ian McHugh, who was brought in last season as the series' line producer, was promoted to full producer, and would hold that role for pretty much the rest of the series. This was the last season with Sharon Miller as head writer. She stepped down from her position mid-season, and Rebecca Evans took over as script editor temporarily for the last 11 episodes. A familiar face also hopped onto the writing staff this year, Andrew Brenner. Already familiar with Thomas, having written the magazine stories from the early 90s, he was brought in as the script editor for this year's special, Blue Mountain Mystery. I believe Brenner was brought on after Miller stepped down, and as the season started its production before the special this time, he only worked on the special this year, not the season. But as we all know, he would become the new head writer for the series, starting next season. Sharon Miller did not leave Thomas completely though. She remained on the crew as the show's voice director until the very end of the series. Nitrogen began pre-production on Blue Mountain Mystery and Season 16 in 2010. The special would feature the grand return of the narrow-gauge engines in full CGI, beloved fan-favorite characters. As Audrey originals, it was important to the team that they do their designs justice, and the Nitrogen staff actually flew out to the Talyllyn Railway in Wales to get detailed photos of the engines to use for reference. Contrary to popular belief, they did not measure the engines and build the CGI models based on the real blueprints. No, all the models were based on the props dimensions, with details from the real engines added, such as Peter Sam's chimney now looking like a proper diesel ejector, the shape of Rheneas' wheel arches changing to accommodate a sandbox, Scarlet regaining the handrail above his face, etc. The big new location of the special would be the Blue Mountain Quarry, the new hub for the narrow gauge engines. Nitrogen clearly did a lot of research when it came to creating this new narrow gauge world in CGI. The quarry is littered with various obscure rolling stock based on actual preserved pieces across Wales. The Blue Mountain Quarry itself was very inspired, clearly based on actual giant multi-leveled Welsh slate quarries like Penrhyn or Abercliffeny. The character of Owen was clearly based on the Incline Witch at Dinorwic Quarry, which still exists today. The pre-production team really did their homework when it came to designing this quarry. It's such a love letter to Wales's slate industry. Early concept art of the quarry reveals that Owen was originally going to be a crane of sorts, and named Bud. Merrick was positioned right below him, and was named Bradley. The voice cast saw some significant updates this year. Michael Legg joined the cast and took on Luke.
I'm sorry I hid from you. I didn't know you and I was scared.
And Stephen Kinman voiced Paxton and Peter Sam.
Oh boy! What was that, Peter Sam?
And he would later take on several other characters in later seasons. Bob Golding was also allegedly meant to make his debut into the cast this year, being signed on to play Freddy in season 16. For unknown reasons, Freddy was dropped completely, and never went on to appear in full CGI. Golding would go on to make his debut in the series next year as Steven.
Surprise!
The other new and returning characters were taken on by the current voice cast. Teresa Gallagher took on Annie and Clarabelle.
Only because we tell you to. Only because we keep you on track.
Keith Wickham took on Skarloey, Sir Handel, and Stafford. Matt Wilkinson took on Rusty, Winston, and Merrick. And Ben Small took on Rheneas and Owen. Victor saw a voice change, with his US voice actor David Badella taking on the role for both English dubs, but only for the movie this year.
Who is Luke? Was he the little green engine? Thomas!
Bye, Thomas!
Matt Wilkinson continued to voice him in the season.
Bother me? It's my job to fix really useful engines in trouble.
I wonder if they did this in the movie just to keep the identity of the yellow engine even more a secret to the UK viewers. But I also wonder if it was done because Victor actually speaks Spanish in the movie.
Calderas hirvientes.
What did you say?
And they wanted the actor of Hispanic descent to perform that. This was a change that was for the best, honestly. I'm so glad that Badella became the voice of Victor in both dubs after this. Charlie also saw a voice actor change in the US dub, with Ben Small, Thomas's UK voice actor, taking it over from Glenn Rage.
Isn't it, Charlie?
Yes, it is!
Oh!
I have no idea why this change was made. My guess is they wanted to make Charlie sound more kid-like for the American audience. On the fandom side of things, rumors started circulating around this time that Derek, or Paxman as the production team calls him, was going to make a cameo appearance in an episode this season, after Greg Tiernan allegedly confirmed it in a conversation with a fan. Lo and behold, Derek never appeared, and it has since been accepted that someone along the way typoed or misinterpreted Paxman from Paxton, because Paxton does make a cameo appearance in the episode Bust My Buffers. Just a funny bit of fandom shenanigans from this time period that I thought was worth mentioning. What is there left to say about Blue Mountain Mystery? I've said before that this is one of, if not my favorite Thomas movie, and it was a delight to rewatch it again. I rewatched the movie with Kevin, Jacob, and Trampy, so they'll also be popping up here to give you their thoughts.
I think Baby's starting to enjoy it. I think Baby's starting to enjoy it.
And I'm clapping. I'm holding my little rattle. Add like a rattling sound effect. Yeah.
Our watch-along highlights are up on my second channel, link below. I'm still in disbelief that this movie exists. By all accounts of how Thomas is marketed nowadays, this movie would never have gotten signed off now, just for its weird cast alone. It's such a breath of fresh air to get a Thomas film that had the restraint to put all the main cast aside and let these more obscure characters shine. Coming off the disastrous Misty Island and Day of the Diesels, would you have ever thought we'd get a Thomas movie where its main players are Thomas, the narrow gauge engines, Victor, and one of the random background diesels? It's so radical. I just love that. Not every movie needs to feature Percy or James or Gordon prominently. Blue Mountain Mystery tells a pretty mature story, at least mature in comparison to the last two dumpster fires. Its themes are interesting and pretty exclusive to it. Understanding that every story has two sides to it, the difficulties that come with language barriers, and the guilt of accidentally sending someone to their presumed death.
I will say this is a crazy concept for a Thomas character. Like, it's not every time you see a Thomas character in a movie being like, "Oh my God, they just killed a guy." Like, you don't see a Thomas character dealing with like guilt of murder.
The plot of this follows Thomas going to work at the Blue Mountain Quarry after Paxton, the diesel who usually works there, has an accident. While he's there, Thomas comes to befriend a little green engine that he's never seen before. The engine's name is Luke, and he tries to stay hidden away, for he fears if he's ever found by authority, he'd be sent away for a crime that he committed a long time ago, accidentally knocking a yellow engine off a ship into the sea. And from there, Thomas tries to solve the mystery of who this yellow engine was, to clear Luke's name and his guilty conscience. There's a lot that I love about this movie. It's crazy to me that something this good came out right after season 15. The last thing you would have watched if you were watching everything in order was Fiery Flynn. Imagine going from that travesty to this. Talk about whiplash. First thing I want to mention, Andrew Brenner's voice is definitely heard in this. Annie and Clarabelle's scenes in this feel very Brenner, very much in line with how they're handled in his seasons as head writer.
Silly me.
Silly you. Clever us.
The scene where Thomas talks to Toby, the narrow gauge engine's banter, pretty much all the stuff with Paxton, or Cranky's
"I'm busy, how should I know? What is this? Ask Cranky Day."
all have a different feel to them to what came before, if you know what I mean. Sharon Miller wrote a very solid story here, and Brenner helped elevate it. Credit to them both for this. In general, I really like the dialogue in this movie. It's not amazing or anything, but oh my god, there's not a single instance of rhyming or alliteration present in this. The characters actually act intelligently and talk like normal-ass people having a conversation. This should be the bare minimum for anything, but it's so refreshing after so many seasons of terrible, stilted, clunky dialogue, and characters acting like complete doofuses. The narrator is used sparingly too. If he's not necessary in a scene, then he remains silent. Scenes let the characters themselves do the talking. The narrator isn't talking, I love it, it's just great.
Yeah, there's actual moments of silence.
Right? It's so refreshing.
It's so quiet.
Just lets the scene play out, it's awesome.
My ears aren't full of garbage. I'm actually just watching a movie.
And they're having conversations where they're saying normal dialogue. They're not saying, "I jiggled and joggled and looked everywhere till my axles ached." No, they're just talking like normal. I love that this movie is not centered around some big event or a new thing being built. No rescue center, no summer house, no town restoration, no airport or anything. It takes place starting on a random, mundane day in the life on Sodor. Thomas goes to the quarry only because Paxton got into an accident, and Topham had to move engines around to accommodate. And while he's there, a mystery unfolds. It's so much more slice of life than other specials, much more in line with typical episodic stories of the show. This is a really big episode that just required more than 9 minutes to tell its story. That alone makes it stand out from any of the movies prior. I also really love Thomas in this movie. He's not an idiot in this. He makes reasonable deductions and decisions that are totally understandable.
The steam works. Where else would you take a rusty engine?
Every time he goes somewhere or does something, we get why he's doing it. It's never in service of a selfish desire of his. It's because he genuinely wants to help, and that makes us want to root for him. I've described him before as the Nick Carraway of this movie. That's the main character of The Great Gatsby, if you're wondering. Meaning that he is the protagonist, but the story is not about him. The meat of the story is about Luke and Victor, and Thomas, like Nick Carraway, is the one that we're seeing everything through the eyes of. He connects the dots and makes actions that drive the plot forward. He doesn't have much of an arc here, but he doesn't really need one. His role in this is more practical. I just appreciate the fact that we finally have another movie that follows Thomas where he isn't an insufferable dummy the whole time. All the characters are pretty great here. I'd love to go more in-depth on my thoughts on Victor and Paxton, but I'll save that for the characters section later. The inclusion of musical numbers within this are effective. This is the first CGI movie to do this, and I quite like them as they use them to move the plot along. These musical breaks are worked into the story, and the lyrics reflect what's happening on screen. Instead of the narrator just boringly stating what Thomas does at the quarry, they show us with a musical number. Instead of just telling us that Thomas and Luke are getting on, they show it, and we see their friendship develop. The musical breaks don't feel like they're interrupting the story or anything. They help move things along efficiently at a decent pace. So here's a potentially hot take. I actually don't like the Blue Mountain Quarry that much. I don't like that this replaced the long-established slate quarry on the Skarloey Railway, and I really don't like how this sort of became the only place that we see the narrow gauge engines at moving forward. I know that we got a few sparse episodes with them here and there after this on the railway proper, but this was clearly HIT's intention to make the characters more marketable. Introduce a big hub where all the little engines scamper about, popping in and out of tunnels. The fact the standard gauge railway can reach this quarry just renders the Skarloey Railway totally pointless. Why was the railway even built if the standard gauge can access the main thing that they transport? I respect how inspired the design of the quarry is though, and the amount of work that Nitrogen put in to make it as authentic to Wales as possible. Here's another potentially hot take. I don't think it was all that out of character for the narrow gauge engines to get upset with Thomas. People always rag on this. Skarloey would never get mad like that. They should have listened to Thomas. And my response to that is, that's the point though. They trusted Thomas so much early on to tell them their dark secret. And to hear a couple days later that Thomas talked about it to some rando, only for the Grim Reaper himself to show up moments later, showing the direct consequences of Thomas's actions, and confirming to them that the worst thing that they feared had happened. And it's tragic in that moment, because we know Thomas's intentions were good, but the narrow gauge engines don't have the knowledge that we the audience have. From their perspective, can you blame them? Of course they'd think Thomas betrayed them and storm off. It probably could have been handled a little differently. Perhaps Luke is the one who gets mad and scared and refuses to hear Thomas out, and Skarloey, after hearing the full story from Thomas, tries to pursue him. And then Thomas is like, "No, Skarloey, he must hear it from me!" And then he goes up Owen's ramp. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. I've sung this movie's praises so far, and it's still up there for me as one of the best Thomas movies. But it ain't perfect. No Thomas movie is. So here are some of the flaws that stood out to me on this rewatch. The big glaring elephant in the room is this mystery surrounding the identity of the yellow engine. Thomas searches for a little yellow engine, and conveniently no one ever thinks of or mentions Duncan. Granted, Luke mentioned the mystery yellow engine spoke a different language, so it makes sense that Thomas wouldn't immediately think of Duncan, but it's strange the thought never came to him. The movie almost pretends that the show's most prominent yellow engine doesn't even exist. You know, there's been so many theories as to why Duncan wasn't brought back for this movie. The most popular being that his real-life counterpart, Douglas, was being overhauled in real life when Nitrogen went to the Tallyclin, so they couldn't get detailed photos, etc. Which is true, it was in pieces at the time, but I don't know if I fully buy that as the reason he's not in this. I mean, where was this information even confirmed? I love when the wiki doesn't cite their sources. I think it's more so because of this. The search for the yellow engine was a major plot point, and they didn't want to muddy the story up by having another yellow engine present. So Duncan was always going to be kept on the back burner for another time. The end gag with Rheneas would have been a perfect place to have Duncan finally pop up. Like he's been at the works this entire time, and it's just like, so, what did I miss? It's Duncan.
That's not Duncan, shut up!
It should have been Duncan. I don't really understand what the point was of introducing Winston in this.
I forgot Winston was a new character in this movie.
Why did they introduce Winston in this? Winston doesn't do anything in this.
Why not, dude? He's awesome.
He's awesome. But I forgot
he's great. I mean, I like Winston, but like what does he add to this film? He doesn't contribute to the plot at all, and it wouldn't have made a difference story-wise if Topham got around in his car versus him. They don't do anything clever with the idea of a car on the rails at all. Maybe if during the climax Winston saw Luke saving Thomas on the cliff, and then he decided to roll forward closer on his own so Topham could see it for himself. You know, a reason for making Topham's get-around vehicle be sentient in this? Just a thought. I wish Diesel was set up as the main villain a little bit earlier. He kinda comes into the story out of nowhere. Maybe a scene of Paxton talking to him while he's being repaired at the Diesel Works, just to show us that he confides in Diesel. They do set up Diesel early on by having James calling back to his incident in Misty Island Rescue.
What about Diesel? He pushed the logs off the bridge and into the sea.
But it's so brief that I forgot all about it by the time Diesel actually shows up in the plot. Think about how weird this moment is. The engines are all talking about incidents that they themselves have had in the past. And then James just out of nowhere brings up Diesel. Like, okay, was Diesel just randomly on your mind or something, James? No one was talking about him. In conclusion, Blue Mountain Mystery has its flaws, but it is such a glorious step up from the last few movies. It tells a great story with some heavy themes, and with such a unique cast. If only all the Thomas movies could be this good. But maybe it's a good thing that they aren't, because then Blue Mountain Mystery wouldn't feel as special as it does. It's a real diamond in the rough. I remember going from Hero of the Rails to its connected season was such a whiplash. The movie was pretty good, only for the season to be pretty damn bad right from the get-go. Blue Mountain Mystery and Season 16 are similar. The storytelling of the episodes this year are so not on the same par as the movie. But the jump was not as jarring here. In fact, I go as far to say that Season 16 actually has a lot of good things going for it. I'd say that it's actually the most watchable of the 4 Nitrogen seasons, but that's not really saying much. As to be expected from Nitrogen at this point, the quality of the animation is fantastic. Nitrogen really peaked here. So many creative camera angles and varying lighting setups were used this year. You know, it's easy to say that all the Nitrogen seasons just look the same, but when you put them side by side, you really do see the subtle differences in how much they have progressed over their time on Thomas. They continue to create the funnest rolling stock consists of the whole series. I love all the weird pieces of rolling stock that they created for this season. So many niche things that appear on screen once or way in the background, like the scrapped Marklin engine, fantastic Easter egg there, or all the super obscure narrow gauge stock scattered around the quarry. Did you know that this wagon's purpose in real life was to transport paintings underground during the war? Or the photographer's little rail bike thing. They're all so fun. This is the first season where I think it's up in the air if it canonically takes place before or after the movie. It aired before the movie originally, and it didn't seem like anything was contradicted continuity-wise because barely anything from the movie is present in the season. There are only 2 episodes that seem to take place after. The Christmas Tree Express, because it features Blue Mountain Quarry, and the movie was clearly when that location was meant to debut. And Happy Birthday, Sir, which features Winston, and Thomas meets him for the first time in the movie. It's so bizarre how Luke and Paxton aren't featured at all, despite their huge roles in the movie. And not to mention Annie and Clarabelle, who finally spoke in the movie, and sadly returned to being mute non-characters for the season. The writing is not really that much better from the last few seasons. Every episode sticks to that same formulaic story structure that they always have, but there are little flourishes here and there that help this batch stick out a bit more. To name a few, Happy Birthday Sir features a flashback with Edward and a young Sir Topham. Muddy Matters ends with a photo being taken that ends up on a newspaper. And Percy and the Calliope builds up to the Calliope playing the old Thomas theme. It feels like the production team were actually having a bit more fun with the episodes this time around, and were being allowed a little more creative freedom. It doesn't make the season great or anything, but the creative touch here is felt, which I can't really say for the last few seasons. It seems the writers this year tried a little bit harder to stick to the established roles of each character. Thomas is mentioned to work on his branch line quite a few times throughout the season, something that has not been relevant in God knows how long. There's a mention that Toby works at the quarry with Mavis, something that he hasn't done in a while. They remember that Edward was one of the first engines on the railway, and it's mentioned that Henry pulls the Flying Kipper, which was super shocking. When was the last time that name was mentioned? Season 5? It's so nice seeing the show remember that these characters actually have specific roles on this railway. This, alongside Misty Island's minimized usage this year, seems to show that they are trying to course-correct the ship a bit. Baby steps, people. Baby steps. The episodes all range from mid to bad this season, but I will say that the dialogue is better this year than it has been. It's not on the same level as the dialogue in Blue Mountain Mystery, mind you, but it is better. They have completely gotten rid of the alliteration, and finally the characters just talk somewhat normally again. Well, most of the time anyway.
Oh me, oh my, a giggling, jiggling snowman.
The characters are all still pretty brain dead as usual, but at least I can bear listening to them this time around. I noticed that they also started working in more humor with the characters' responses to each other. Like how Diesel scoffs Thomas here.
Well, I'm being really useful. Bye, Diesel. Useful.
And how Den mocks Thomas here.
I'm chasing crows for Farmer McCall.
Chasing crows.
I actually got a giggle out of that. I like this response from James.
Will Katie and Farmer McCall's sheep be in the photograph too?
They might be. In the background.
Perfect James line. Stafford's remarks to Spencer ignoring him.
Spencer! Spencer! Oh, never mind, Spencer.
Note every time that Stafford makes a funny remark like that, his face isn't shown. That's because apparently these lines were improv'd by Keith Wickham, and they just kept them in.
Oh dear. Here we go again.
The composer's hummings were also amusing.
Ha
These little moments give the stories and characters quite a bit more life, and it feels a lot more in tune with the Thomas universe that we know and love, where these characters can be a little snooty, a little dim, and a little sarcastic at times. I wish I had more to say about the season itself, but there really isn't that much to talk about. There's some notable improvements in the dialogue and the presentation, but it still has all the same issues with story structure and dumb plots as the other Nitrogen seasons. There were moments here and there that I quite enjoyed, but on the whole, I don't really find myself desiring to rewatch any of these episodes again. What I really want to talk about now are the characters. But before we get into that, here's my usual list of stray observations. I totally forgot that Duncan gets mentioned in the season.
Duncan's rods are rattling. He needs Victor.
So, he does exist. That just makes no one bringing him up in the movie even more bizarre. The funny funnel from season 13 makes a reappearance. I like how it was just in storage at the Steamworks, and Kevin knew to find it, which means it was probably left there when Thomas got a new one following that episode. Fun continuity there. Speaking of continuity, I like how the Calliope car from Percy and the Calliope becomes a part of the Christmas train in a later episode. It's never addressed or anything, I just think it's neat. There's a line missing from the narrator in the US dub here.
But Thomas was already hurrying to the Blue Mountain Quarry as fast as his pistons could pump.
And Diesel's response to Thomas here is different in each dub.
Useful.
Nice to see the trucks with faces again. Been a while since we've seen them. I don't know why they stopped using them. I love how stupid these rail-to-road siding things are. Conveniently there just for Flynn. So were these built exclusively for Flynn? I mean, who else could use them? And if so, why are they in the middle of nowhere? Flynn can convert to his road wheels literally anywhere. On the topic of how stupid this episode is, why was Flynn unable to put the fire out from the rails? The shed is right there, and we've seen before that his hoses can reach pretty damn far. Now if the shed was like on a hill in the distance or something, okay sure, but it's not. This is just lazy set design, and a really dumb episode. I hate Flynn. He's a top contender for the show's worst characters. I like how Nitrogen created full cab interiors for Skarloey and Peter Sam and presumably the others, only for them to be used once. Ever. Right here. A for effort. I like how Stanley and Scruff are randomly name dropped here.
Whiff and Scruff scrunched rubbish in the rubbish dump. And Thomas and Stanley biffed and bashed freight trucks.
Hope you liked that, cause that's all they do this season. Neither speak or anything. The Duchess of Boxford is used a shocking amount this season. This completely nothing background character gets 3 speaking roles this year. Like, I think she's only had 3 speaking roles total prior to this season, if that. What was their fascination with her this year? Nice to see more human characters getting used, I guess. Is this legit the only time the coastal track with the lighthouse appears in CGI? I can't believe this never appeared again. I like how the composer calls Topham Fat Controller right to his face.
Fat Controller, I am sorry to keep you waiting.
This killed me. Do they not know that that's a nickname that everyone calls him behind his back? Hey, Toby's driver is finally standing in the front. Only took them 3 seasons to get that right. I like how the camera holds on Spencer here when he spins on the turntable. Not only is it a fun way to show that action, but it cleverly hides the fact that Spencer absolutely cannot fit on that turntable. In third place, we have a tie between 2 characters that you probably wouldn't expect. Percy and Whiff. Wow, with 2 leads each. Never thought we'd see Whiff mentioned here. In second place, we have Gordon with 3 leads. And in first place is, of course, Thomas as always, with only 8 leads this time around. Shockingly low for him. Since we're on him, let's talk about Thomas. Thomas flip-flopped so much for me this year. He's fantastic in Blue Mountain Mystery, and there's a couple episodes I thought he was pretty endearing in. Flashbang Wallop and Happy Birthday Sir were quite good, I thought. In both episodes, he wasn't exactly doing anything selfish or stupid. He didn't realize he was blocking the others in the photos, and he only nagged Winston because he wanted to get his jobs done to be at the party for Topham. But then in other episodes, they resort to him being the dumbest idiot ever as usual. Surprising engines by whistling at them, a plot that they've done before, mind you. Intentionally abandoning passengers to make his load lighter. Chasing crows? I am so glad that this is the final Hit Era season. I am so done with this version of Thomas. I did quite like how many times they paired him and Gordon up this year though, the varying quality of those episodes aside. They certainly played into the competitive rivalry between these two a lot. And I quite liked this moment when Thomas gave Gordon a bit of a pep talk when he was upset about his new buffer beam. That was nice. For the first time in a CGI season, Thomas is finally not present in every episode. We got a handful this season that he only makes a brief cameo in. I'm happy to see them finally fully stepping away from Thomas and focusing more on the side characters. So many of them got leads this year. Spencer, Salty, Whiff, Charlie, Den, and Dart. And of course, the narrow gauge engines. Let's talk about the narrow gauge engines. This was their grand return to the show, and I think they did a really good job of making them feel true to their original selves. Skarloey especially. It really feels like that they understood the way they wrote him in the hit model seasons was a huge mistake, and they tried to rectify that. Skarloey is now back to being the wise leader of the pack, with a booming voice to solidify that.
Always. If your wheels aren't whirring, you aren't being a really useful engine. Marvelous!
I liked how Rheneas was handled too, a bit bubbly and with a sense of humor. I like that they used him specifically for the epic runaway sequence at the start of the movie, once again showing he is the brave little engine of the group. Bro went through a terrifying experience and simply laughed it off.
Oh, I'm all right. I made it down safely.
And his and Skarloey's joking brotherly bond is still very much intact.
I've been bumped again. Now I have to be repainted.
You have to stop bumping into things, Rheneas.
For the most part, I think the narrow gauge engine's return was handled really well. Really, my only gripe with them is that the Blue Mountain Quarry seems to be their main home now, and that Duncan is MIA. I like all the new characters this season. All of them are based on very unique engines in real life. A narrow gauge Wren, a battery electric engine, an inspection car, an inclined winch house. They're not just toys for the sake of selling merchandise like the last few seasons. No steam engines with water cannons plastered on them or cranes that spin around and throw logs. All are fairly realistic and interesting prototypes. That being said, there's not that much to write home about with Stafford or Winston this year beyond their designs. But I will say, I really like the gag that Topham is not good at driving Winston. A fact that we learned about him all the way back in Season 6.
"Oh, it's you," said Elizabeth, looking down at Sir Topham Hatt. "Have you learned to drive properly yet?"
Luke is a welcome newcomer. The first newcomer that I really liked since probably Victor and Hero. His story is so tragic that you can't help but feel bad for him. And he has a great arc, learning to trust others and overcome past trauma. He spent his whole life hiding away in the shadows, never wanting to be seen, only for it to bookend with him putting himself out in the open center stage to save a friend in need. All eyes on him. Luke's trauma came from causing someone to fall, and he redeems himself by preventing someone from falling. A perfect full circle moment. Even though Thomas is the protagonist, Luke is the hero of this story. Also, his theme? These intense flute snippets that come in when he's overwhelmed by fear and regret and anger.
I don't want to listen to you ever again.
Gives me chills, man. He really feels like a character that came to be from a story idea first, not a toy shoehorned into a story. Paxton is one of the wildest pulls from the franchise so far. They really did the impossible here. Took an absolutely nothing background glup shitto and turned it into one of the most likable, conflicted characters of the series. I am still floored that this happened, and I'm so happy that they didn't just create a new character to fulfill his role. Paxton is a Diesel that is torn between two worlds. He has a good heart and no ill will towards anyone. But at the same time, he is a Diesel, and his family back home, that he confides in, encourages him to do the wrong things. And Paxton, being so gullible, unfortunately finds himself in situations where he has to make a choice. The climax of the movie actually hinges on Paxton making a choice. Does he follow his mentor figure, Diesel, or does he follow his conscience and go get Victor? He does do the right thing in the end, and redeems himself. I find Diesel and Paxton's dynamic to be one of the most interesting ones from the CGI series. Diesel is clearly a bad influence, and knows he can manipulate him and treat him like crap because Paxton is gullible and doesn't know better. But Paxton has something that Diesel doesn't. A conscience, which gives him the advantage. I'm sure I'll talk more about Paxton in later videos, but let it be known that I really love this guy. One of the CGI series' bests. I love seeing so many secondary characters getting lead roles this time around. Whiff got used a lot, the most he'll probably ever be used in a season, though I found there's not all that much to say about him. His episode was such a snorefest, if I'm honest, a plot that's been done 1,000 times before. It was really fun seeing Spencer pop up often, I always like seeing him, and all the Diesels having a heavy presence. Speaking of the Diesels, let's talk about Den and Dart briefly. After being rather underused last season, it's nice to see them in the spotlight a bit more. We learned from their episode that they dread being split apart. The episode itself is ridiculous, but it's nice to see some further characterization for them. I know a later episode from season 19 uses this same premise again, and does it so much better. Den and Dart are likable, and I find their back and forth humorous.
What's he saying?
Dunno.
I'm saying thank you. Oh, you're welcome.
I really enjoyed Salty this year. It doesn't feel like he's done anything at all in the CGI series yet. And now, out of nowhere, Salty is appearing in several episodes. They utilize the storytelling potential of a character who, well, tells stories. Many of his tales set plots in motion, like The Monster of Brendam, the story of young Topham and his special carriage, and all the tales that he tells Edward about his past. It was nice to see some history for Salty, as brief as it was. You can tell that they had some fun writing this character. And boy is Keith Wickham having a blast voicing him.
Oh, shiver me timbers, Edward! Oh!
Salty is so present in the following Brenner-era seasons. It's fun to see that this is where they started to discover the potential of his character. Diesel was also a standout this year. Diesel is the most Diesel that he's felt in years, really returning to the main villain of the series. He showed his true colors pretty damningly in Blue Mountain Mystery, actively advocating for Luke to be ridden of.
Now, the fat controller and the thin controller will sort your little friend out once and for all.
He was pretty prominent in the season too, and continued to be his usual bully self throughout, where he had a handful of great lines.
Steam swirled from his pistons and whimpered from his whistle.
That's the only music I've heard all day.
He's a real advocate for scrapping the old and bringing in the new this year. As for characters that I could not stand this year, well, there's a few of those too. Flynn, of course. I just despise him. Is he anyone's favorite character? Seriously, I must know. Are there any fans watching that place Flynn in their top 5 characters ever? He must have game though, because he somehow has a kid in the reboot. Yes, this is real, and I don't know what to make of it yet. Henry was also a weak point. Once again, we're presented with a wimpy version of Henry, afraid of the most inane things. A sound in the fog that's very clearly a diesel engine. Or a talking snowman.
What sort of ball doesn't bounce?
I don't know.
A snowball!
Oh me! Oh my! A laughing snowman!
Oh my god, I can't believe this was the plot of an episode. I couldn't stand Toby either in his Spotlight episode for the same reason, being so afraid of Misty Island that he can't even open his eyes. Despite the fact that he's been there before, multiple times! This episode really tested my patience with how repetitive it was. And what a shame too, considering the fun character mashup in it. I mean, it's a Toby and Rheneas team-up episode. That sounds awesome! Too bad the plot is dog water. As for this year's MVP, I'm gonna be honest, I was between 2 characters. I was actually considering giving it to Percy again, believe it or not. Percy was a real standout. Both his episodes depict his character really well. A curious, determined, brave little guy. In The Monster of Brendam, he shows no fear of the supposed monster, and even when he thinks he's face to face with it, he rolls forward and tries to confront it.
Hello? Mr. Monster? Is that you?
Percy and the Calliope showed his persistence, determined to get an old Calliope working again, to keep it from going to a scrapyard. A simple goal, but a noble one, and one we want to see him achieve. Where was this version of Percy last year? May I remind you that this is what Percy was up to last season?
Hello, Mr. Rabbit. Will you be my friend? Gordon scared me. Big balloons make my boiler bubble, Thomas.
Yeah, quite the contrast. But giving it to Percy just didn't feel right at all. There is one other character that I think deserves it more. And that's Victor. The character work done on Victor this year is remarkable. Taking this well-established character that's been in the cast for a few years at this point, and revealing an entire history for him that totally changes how we view him. The mystery of Blue Mountain Mystery is Victor. He was the mysterious yellow engine. Victor once worked in Cuba where he was painted yellow. He was sold to Sodor and arrived to the island on a ship, which stopped and picked up Luke on the way. Being a Cuban native, Victor did not speak English, and faced some difficulties with the language barrier.
And he spoke a different language.
Hola, ¿a dónde vas? ¿Vas a Sodor?
A language I couldn't understand.
The chains holding him down on the deck snapped, and he was unable to let anyone know that he was in danger.
Tengo un problema. I called to the crew, but they didn't understand me.
This, of course, led to disaster, when Luke accidentally bumped into him, and poor Victor fell off the ship into the sea. He was left there for ages until he could be rescued, and by then, he was wrecked. But Victor was restored at the steamworks, and painted into the color he wanted. He chose red, the first word in English that he learned. I love Victor's backstory, and just the fact they gave him one. They so easily could have made the Mystery Yellow Engine a new character, but they didn't. Just like with Paxton, they took a character who already existed and fleshed them out further. It makes me wonder if this immigration storyline was always a part of the plan for Victor to be used at some point since his introduction. Whether it was or not, I applaud them for this. And I love that Victor's history becomes more prevalent in his character in later seasons. I remember him complaining about the cold in a later episode because it was always warm where he came from.
Where I come from, it's warm all year round and there's no snow. I hate snow.
I understand that Blue Mountain Mystery does all the heavy lifting for the MVP this time. Victor doesn't actually do that much in the season, but I think he deserves it still. Really great character work here. I'm going to be a little predictable now and say that the season's standout is Percy and the Calliope. What? The one that everyone likes is the standout? Crazy! This is the one that ends with the Calliope playing the old Thomas theme.
But then, with a cough and a splutter, it began to play.
Now this was pretty sensational when it first came out. People were floored by this. It was the first time the modern show was acknowledging its past and doing something that only the fans would exclusively pick up on. It doesn't seem all that special now, considering how spoiled we were after this, but it's still nice. And it's why this episode sticks out in people's minds. I think the episode itself is pretty decent too. Well, decent for Nitrogen era standards anyway. Purely for how Percy is characterized. I love how determined he is to help save the Calliope. His persistence is admirable. It harks back to the attitude of the classics where engines tried to save others from scrap. Even so, Percy's attempts to make the Calliope work again are pretty damn laughable.
Perhaps if I push the Calliope, it will play.
Really, Percy? Did you think pushing it up the hill would really do anything? I admire your intentions, but you're still kind of an idiot. Don't Bother Victor is also a memorable one. Not because it's a good episode or anything, but just for it is the only narrow gauge focused episode of the season. This aired long before Blue Mountain Mystery, so I remember vividly for a while there, this was our only exposure to the narrow gauge in CGI, so we rewatched this one a lot. It's a standout for that alone, but I wouldn't say it's anything to write home about. It's Steamy Sodor with Peter Sam, that's all this is. Victor even plays the same role in both. My favorite episode of the lot is Happy Birthday, Sir, which you all probably already knew. I once talked about this episode as a hidden gem. Yes, it's the one with the funny Topham meme.
Every year, on my birthday.
I like this one a lot for its flashback. This is, to my knowledge, the first time in the whole series that they dived into some of Sodor's past, revealing a young Topham Hatt before he gained the weight, and that he'd travel in an old carriage every year on his birthday. I love, love, love that it's Edward present in the flashback, and the one that escorts him, staying true to the lore that he was one of the first engines on the railway. I like Thomas, I like Winston, and I like Salty. It's not an amazing episode or anything, but it's pretty dang good for this era. Makes me wonder what a young Loam was up to during those old times. This is also the final episode of the season in the official order, meaning this is the final line read by both Michaels.
And that made Thomas and Winston happier than ever.
And that made Thomas and Winston happier than ever.
R.I.P. Michael Angelus. Your 20-year contribution to this series cannot be understated. I also liked Welcome Stafford just for how weird of an episode it is. So Stafford is a new engine, right? And he just shows up in the first frame of the episode with no introduction. Like, bam! New character, here's Stafford. And then Spencer, of all characters, is tasked with showing him around. Like, why Spencer? Why not a Sodor resident? And why does Stafford need to see places like Misty Island exactly? It becomes a very Toby and James sort of episode. The hotshot, pompous character gets ahead of himself, while the wiser, slower character is left to make sarcastic remarks at how dumb the hotshot is being, and ends up saving the day in the end after the hotshot embarrasses himself. It's pretty amusing for what it is, even though its plot is nonsense. I'm gonna give the sum up to Flash Bang a Wallop, which is admittedly a pretty funny episode. I think it sums up Season 16 pretty well, because on the surface it is just a standard formulaic Nitrogen episode. but it has a lot of little things in it that show improvement. Thomas trying to sneak his way into photos of the engines is pretty funny, and in character for him. Not to mention other little details, like that book that Topham was holding at the start of the episode, with photos of real engines inside it. The real-world influence is really felt this year. But for all the little improvements made this season, it still has quite a few stinkers. Race to the Rescue, Thomas Toots the Crows, and the Christmas Tree Express, to name a few of its low points. But the worst episode of the season, in my opinion, is Ho Ho Snowman. For the record, I did ask Trampy if he wanted to review this episode, but he said he was busy with friends or something. What can I even say about this one? Charlie tries to prank Henry by making it seem like a snowman is talking to him. Oh, how convenient. Someone built a snowman right between the tracks, and right between a gap in these trucks.
Ho, ho, ho! Hello, Henry! Shall I tell you a joke? Who said that? Ho, ho, ho! I did!
Henry, in all his wisdom, falls for the prank hook, line, and sinker. And being the brave, stoic soul that he is, he gets scared of it and runs off and hides. And it takes 3 whole interactions with this snowman before he actually does something. And, not to mention, it opens with Thomas and Charlie shunting trucks on Gordon's Hill? What? Of all locations? Why? Who decided this? There is no substance to this plot. I can't believe this got greenlit. The holiday episodes are all especially weak this year. It feels like they were really grasping at straws for story ideas that take place in the snow. Salty Surprise is the only okay-ish one, and that's really just because Salty himself is a delight.
Ha! That's right. Ha!
Just goes to show how much a charming character can carry an incredibly mid-episode. The word or phrase that I'd use to describe Season 16 is on the mend. We have reached the very last of the hit seasons, the last of the bad CGI seasons before we get into the Renaissance era. And it's really nice to have revisited it and see that there were already some signs of improvement being made. Dialogue is better, the new characters are interesting, and the real-world influence is felt. It's not a great season of Thomas or anything. I don't see myself coming back to rewatch these episodes anytime soon. But as a longtime fan, I found stuff here to like, even beyond Blue Mountain Mystery. So much good came from that movie. It being as good as it is, sandwiched between a bad season and a not great season, is nothing short of amazing, and I still rank it pretty damn high in my movie ranking. Right now it is my favorite, but I have a couple others to rewatch before I can say that for sure right now. We've reached the light at the end of this dark tunnel, and we shall now be rewarded with Season 17, the season that changed everything. And I cannot wait to revisit it. For this pick of the week, I'm going to keep the Blue Mountain Mystery love going and shout out Thomas's most underrated masterpiece, Blue Mountain Mystery, by Zach Island. This is a lengthy deep dive into why Blue Mountain Mystery is Zach's favorite Thomas film, and he has some interesting things to say about it. If you desire a nice long video on just the movie itself, this is the video for you. Check it out. It's May, everyone! And we should start seeing our first real glimpse into the 2026 reboot soon. Mattel said back at Toy Fair that the YouTube content they had planned for it is supposed to start rolling out this month. I think they're waiting until the anniversary date, May 12th, to post the first of it. But I'm probably wrong about that. Hell, knowing my luck, the first thing will be out before I even post this video. I'm planning on doing some sort of video once it starts rolling out, just to give you all my first impressions. Fingers crossed that it's worth the wait. Hopefully not long now. Reboot stuff aside, I'm thinking the next video will be another sidetracked. I know the exact character that I want to cover for it. It's a fan favorite. Unless the reboot stuff comes out like really soon, this will likely be the next video. Stay tuned. As for updates on personal life stuff, our big house move is coming up soon. We'll be leaving at the end of May, and everything so far is going according to schedule. But other than that, not a lot else to update you all on. Thank you for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this retrospective, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye now.